In this tutorial, I'm going to go back over the basic concepts that I covered in part 1, where we learned how to use closed splines, except this time we'll learn how to use multiple open splines. If you have not watched Warper Basics Part 1, you may want to do that first. We will go to the project called Warper Basics Part 2. You can work along with me, or you can try this on your own after watching the tutorial. In case any of you are wondering, yes, that's me in the picture. I'm making a face though. I've just added Reflex Warp plugin to the clip. If you don't remember how, go back and watch the Warper Basics Part 1 tutorial as I covered it there. We will go to the Effects Controls panel and put the display on Unwarped Image to make sure we're looking at the source image. In Part 1 of Warper Basics, I explained the concepts of source-destination pairs, or to-from pairs in depth, so be sure to watch Part 1, and this will just be a review for you. Let's go ahead and draw a mask. Since we're going to use multiple open splines in this tutorial, I will tell you the plan. We're going to open the eye more, or should I say my eye, pull my lips out and make them pucker more, and maybe even make my nose bigger. Let's start by going to the pen tool or use the keyboard shortcut G on the Mac or Windows. Go ahead and outline the top of the eyelid like I'm doing here. Since we want to make this an open spline, instead of going back to the first vertex to finish the shape like we did for a closed spline, we can tap outside the window to end the shape as an open spline. Now we can change the name to eyelid top from. Then we can duplicate the spline for our to spline using Command D on the Mac or Control D for Windows. As you can see, the duplicate is called eyelid top from 2. So we can just change it to eyelid top 2, and there's your first to from pair. Just a note, I like to use descriptive names, but you can call your splines whatever makes sense to you. Just keep in mind that adding to and from will make it easier when you have a lot of splines to work with. Now let's draw the next spline. We can follow the same steps. We will name this eyelid bottom from and Command D on the Mac or Control D for Windows to duplicate it, and then change the name to eyelid bottom 2. Now we have the second pair. Go ahead and repeat these steps for the top of the nose, top of the lip, and bottom of the lip, and I will do the same. Okay, now that we have added the spline pairs and changed their names, let's change the colors of the splines. We can select all of the from splines by Command Select for the Mac or Control Select for Windows, and select the names that have the from at the end. Now just tap inside the color pot and make them red. Now select all of the splines with the to and make them green. The colors are your choice. I'm just using red and green. So now we've made all of the from splines red in this case and all of the to splines green. Now comes the fun part. You will go to the Effect Controls window for Reflex Warp and change the display to Warped Image. And check the box next to Auto Hide Show Masks to show the to mask. I went over this in the Warper Basics Part 1 tutorial. As a quick reminder though, this will make it easier to warp your image without selecting the from mask by mistake while making adjustments. Now, more decisions to be made. Do we want to animate this warp? If so, we need keyframes. If we don't want to animate the warp, then it doesn't really matter which frame we do the warping on. But since we're trying to get practice here and becoming warping pros, let's go ahead and animate the warp. Let's say we don't want any changes at the beginning. We can go to frame 0 and just set a keyframe without making any change. We can toggle the stopwatch to set the key and turn on animation. We can do that for each mask. Let's go back to the first mask now and go to the last frame. In this case, it's frame 29 because there are 30 frames and our project starts at frame 0. At frame 29, we can go ahead and do whatever we want with my poor face. Make the nose bigger, pull out the lips, close the eye. Be nice, please. When you're finished contorting my face, you can check out a RAM preview and render your masterpiece if you want. If you want to add a boundary around my face so the hair and the rest of the face that isn't part of the warping doesn't also move around, you can do that. Go ahead and add a new mask, G for both Mac and Windows, and draw around the features that are being warped. You can change the mask type to none and change the name to boundary. Now go to the Effects Controls and go to the pull-down menu next to Boundary and select Boundary. This will make that shape act as a bounding box for the warping effect. Now if you do another RAM preview, you will see that the warp is only affecting the area within the boundary. I'm just going to tweak it a bit to make it a little closer to the nose so the other eye doesn't warp. Let's do one more RAM preview. And that looks better now. This is how you do a simple warp using multiple open splines. Be sure to watch part 1 if you want to know how to do a simple warp using a closed spline.